Thanks for tuning in to Becoming Something, where we promise to keep the conversation honest and real for young adults in their 20s and 30s. Every moment we live is training for a future moment, and that's why we do this podcast, because we want you to be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you. Our hope with this podcast is that it would help you become all that God desires you to be. So with that in mind, let's jump right in to this week's episode of Becoming Something.
What's up, podcast world? It's your boy JP in the podcast studio with Nathan Hilgenkamp.
What's up, guys?
And Kathy Davidson.
What's up?
And
Whoa.
Am I being replaced? I'm a little insecure right now.
Honestly, you could beat it.
And if it was Hannah goes, you have John Acuff.
Oh.
John Acuff. And I was like, I feel like you're putting the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. John Acuff is here. What's up, my guy?
Yeah, it's good to see you guys.
I guess you're not here, but you're here virtually. You're virtually here.
I like the word studio is how churches say campus when they have a parking lot. Because like studio,
Yeah.
I can see y'all have two foam things hung up in a an empty meeting office at a church. I'm like,
This
we're here
wasn't
at the
even-
studio.
It's not even a meeting office. It was like a closet.
Yeah.
Like a
Legit a closet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah,
worse
yeah.
than
I mean,
that.
this is my.
Here.
There's no AC
Yeah,
in here, so they have to turn the AC off when we record.
It's only Texas. Don't worry about it. It's not. It's not hot. It's not hot in Texas.
No big deal.
You're in Nashville, right?
Yeah, we're in Franklin, which is like 20 minutes outside of that.
That's where every cool Christian lives.
We were
Yeah.
just talking to
You
somebody
have to
from-
live here. Eventually,
Well,
there's like
Northwest.
it's Michael Hyatt makes you move here.
Yeah.
There's like this whole kind of pull.
Yeah, but
He's
it's
been
getting
trying
crowded.
to with me, but I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Oh my gosh.
Michael Hyatt calls twice a week. And I am sick of it,
Yeah.
man. I'm just like,
Yeah,
get
exactly.
the hint, man. Like, we're not moving to Franklin. You know?
That's
it's like,
funny.
gee, we like
That's
we
funny.
like Waco, okay?
Yeah.
Calm
Yeah.
down. So I love it. And so you and Kathy went to the
I
same
went to the same school.
college? Like,
Same
y'all have
firm.
any classes together?
I think.
Oh,
I was
I'm
a
way
little
older,
bit
dude.
behind.
Look at my hair. Look at my hair.
Hey,
Dude, come on.
Your hair is that color, at least on screen, that it's hard to tell if is it like surfer boy blonde or
No, dude.
or is it George Clooney gray? You know, it's
in
tough.
real life, it's easy to tell.
Yeah.
In real life, you're like, dang, that guy could sell me a mortgage. Like, yeah, you can tell in real life.
When I was at Samford, your book Stuff Christians Like that was the big thing that had just come
Oh, that's
out.
awesome.
That like was where
Yeah.
I think you got your start. You were just like a funny Christian. I don't know, calling out the
Yeah,
dumb things
still
that we
both.
like.
You were-
Hopefully, still both.
You were. We'll see how funny you are
You're
today.
no longer. you still have your salvation, but you're no longer.
I've been
funny.
I've been deconstructing my humor. Like,
That's good. That's good. That's good. I'm pumped, man. Okay,
That's
so
really
here's the deal.
funny.
We're getting into it because I read soundtracks, my guy, and I loved it. And it was I'm like a big fan of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Sure.
I know we're jumping in the deep end on that, but I really am. I mean, I just think with as we learn that our brain can change and our thinking has a really big impact on the trajectory of our decisions. I found that book entertaining. I've now suggested it to many people. I've read it together in some groups. So way to go for that. I know that's not really what we're here to talk about, but I do want to tell the world and our listeners about that book, Soundtracks. That was
yeah, I
awesome.
appreciate that, dude. That's it was a fun one to write, and I knew it would do well because it helped me a lot first, and it still helps me. I use the principles to this day, and I think you can always tell a book that an author's written that they don't believe in. Like you can go like the ideas are right, but they're not. I say sometimes you'll see books that are technically true but not practically true.
Yeah.
They give you a bunch of advice that no one could ever execute in the real world.
Yeah.
And so for me, using it in my own life and then testing it with hundreds and hundreds of people first, so that by the time it comes out, like by the time I have a book come out, it's already been through so many other real people. So I usually feel good about the content. So I can say this is a real thing that'll help.
Yeah, that's what I did with Outdated. Is I just put all the stuff on the top shelf, like nobody's gonna do this, you know. I'm just like kiss dating goodbye and stuff, you know, not a chance. So, but I'm glad yours was helpful. Like you can.
I appreciate that.
So the new book is your new playlist, and so this is what we're talking about, which has some overlap with some of those mindsets. And so, why did you write this one? Speaking of books you believe in and messages you believe in, it's your new playlist. We're on with John Acuff, and what's the story behind
well
this
so
one?
I wrote this one for a couple reasons. One, parents asked for it. I've written 7 books. I've never had parents say, hey, do you have a version for teenagers and young adults? And immediately they started to ask for that, because parents understand that if you can understand something true at 19, at 15, at 12, at 22, you can run with it. Like when I talk to 45-year-old executives, you know, because most of what I do, 90% of the year, I'm in corporations. A lot of times they've just been given a new opportunity and they're pulling back from it. And if you pull the thread, you find out that when they were 19, a professor said, you're not a natural leader. And they believed that, and they've listened to that thought for 25 years. And so now when they get leadership opportunities, they go, well, I'm not a real leader. I'm not a natural leader. So a lot of parents said, hey, can you figure out a version for young adults? So that was the first reason. The second reason, and this is just because God has an amazing sense of humor. About 10 years ago, I would talk to students and I would ask them at these camps I'd speak to, because I feel like that's you earn your way up. Like you got to go through camp first. Like camp teaches you how to speak, because like students will fall asleep in the first 30 seconds if you suck. Adults pretend they're praying. Like an adult will be like, oh, I was deep in thought. Like where like a kid, like students can tell if something's not honest or real right away. And so I spoke to all these students and I would say, write down what your thoughts are telling you. And they would turn them in anonymously. And then I had a box of them, thousands of them that sat on my shelf for 10 years.
Wow.
And I never felt like I was supposed to throw them away. And then when this book idea started kind of to gel, it was like God tapped me on the shoulder and was like, tap, tap, tap. Remember the thousands of real students who told you their real inner voices? Like, open that box. And when I opened that box, I was able to see patterns and systems and consistencies. Like what the most common word on all the cards was the word enough, more than any other word, enough. So students would say, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not connected enough, whatever. And so those two things kind of collided. And that's why I ended up saying, because I'd made fun of the last chapter of Stuff Christians Like was me saying, Christians love spin-off books. Like we love Stuff Christians Like for redheaded uncles that have mustaches and live in Topeka. Like we love the spin-off where it's like we do a version for a version for a version. So I didn't want to do that. But when those two things started to happen, and then the third thing is I saw broken soundtracks in young adults everywhere I looked. So I'd see, an example would be we are at a swim meet and a girl got out of the pool and told her mom, I'm the slowest swimmer on the team. I'll never get better. And my wife and I looked at each other and said, oh, those are just broken soundtracks. She can change that. And so I started to see them too. And so that's why that's how the book came together.
Man, yeah. And so you kind of, you got into just the idea of soundtracks there. I want to go deeper there, but let me ask you this. So you are, a Christian and funny still. How do you decide how to write these books? Because they're not like Christian books, if you will, you know what I mean? Or feel free to tell me I'm wrong on that. But I don't remember in soundtracks like a lot of like chapter and verses. And so how does your faith, impact your writing, and how do you make those choices?
Yeah, I think if you're a believer and you read one of my books, you go, oh, this is biblical. Like he didn't create the idea of renewing your mind or thinking things that are true and beautiful. Like God begs us to take our thought life seriously about 1 billion times in the Bible. Yep. And if you're not a believer, I think you read my books and go, something's different. I'm curious. So yeah, I write business books, self-help books, kind of how to become a high performance leader type of books. And that's my focus. So I realized a few years ago that that's where I wanted to be. And that was where God had planted me. And a pastor friend of mine did a great job of helping me understand that. He would say, bloom where you're planted. You're there for an hour. Like sometimes the Christian on staff is there all year. So, go do your job with excellence in the same way that I think this is changing, but growing up, it killed me that if somebody had an ichthus on their business card, it meant they sucked at their job, but they would pray for you. Yeah. And like the plumber would be average, but like he loved Jesus. And so now I think there's this whole group of men and women like me who are in the marketplace, who are doing their best to be the double their talents person that gets the party. Like, I'm going to turn 5 into another 5, 2 into another 10. And are using, you know, their jobs and their work that way.
Coley, just bleep out all those sucks, okay?
Oh
like
my
this guy,
Yo, please.
This guy's edgy, okay? So we got to be careful.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Do you remember
stinks? I'll say stinks going forward.
Yeah.
Do you remember the power of positive thinking? Is that on your radar? I think it was Norman.
Yeah, sure.
And so how is this different than that?
Well, so I mean, when I create any product, any book, any speech, I look at 3 things. 1, a personal connection. Am I deeply personally connected to the content? If I'm not, you'll be able to tell, and it's not worth spending years researching it, talking about it for a long time. 2, is there a real need? The people in the marketplace need this. So with Soundtracks, we asked 10,000 people. So the PhD that helps me do research, we asked 10,000 people, and 99.5% of people said, yes, I struggle with overthinking. Third thing is I look in the marketplace and I go, is there a place for me to fit? So when I went into the marketplace and studied overthinking or mindset, I was surprised how many books said, stop it, just stop it. And number 1, that's impossible. You're designed to think. And number 2, with what we know about how your brain can change, wouldn't it make more sense to just think thoughts that pushed you forward, not thoughts that pulled you back? So that's why I was able to say, okay, this is going to be different from other books that are in the marketplace. And the third thing is that I knew with humor, I could communicate in a really fun way. Like, tell me a positive thinking book that you read that you were like, that was hilarious. Or like that made, like, most of them some of them can be cheesy, some of them can be mushy, some of them can be holistic, where you're like, I'm going to dance in a drum circle in Malibu with a sprig of sage. And so what I wanted to do was go, this is going to be different because it's going to tell you something you can do on a Tuesday. You're going to get something you can really do on a Tuesday. It's going to be very funny. It's going to be very relatable. I mean, there's 36 real stories from real people in Soundtracks. So books like mine don't do well when they're written as almost pseudo memoirs. Like, I'm 46. This is my 7th book. Like, God forbid I write another memoir type book where it's like, here's another side of John Acuff. Like, you don't need that. Nobody needs that. Books like mine do well when you invite lots of real people in. So a stay-at-home mom, a 22-year-old, like, other people can see their stories in it. That's how it's different too, is that there's a lot of personal stories in it that are proof of the work that happens when you actually read the book.
I love
so
it. The
good.
book is your new playlist, John Acuff. The subtitle is Superpower of Mindset, and so it's a lot about thinking. And as I said, I don't read. I mean, you guys know, I read the Bible and not very much of anything else.
Yeah.
And I loved Soundtrack. I actually listened to it, by the way, and I thought it was excellent. And I went back and listened to it a couple times. So, any thoughts from you guys?
Well,
Yeah, I'll go first. So I always let you go first. So so if I've been told all my life, I'm not smart,
Which is true.
yeah, we tell you that
I
every
know.
week.
This is just a hypothetical.
Hypothetically speaking.
If that's what I've been told all my life, and that's true because I've been told it, am I just supposed to tell myself, no, I'm really smart? Like, is the goal just to lie to yourself? And
No, you never fix an old lie with a new lie. Like, that's why, like, you asked how is this different from, like, I don't like most of the motivational stuff that's so popular. Like, I hate stuff like sometimes you just got to jump and grow wings on the way down. That's never how gravity works. I had a friend, let's take it to the spiritual side. I had a friend once tell me there's a lot of Christians who skydive out of the plane when God was going to land it. Like, God was going to land the plane and I'm doing this for Jesus, I'm doing it. And they jump out of the plane and they collapse and they crash and they go, man, God really let me down. And God was like, we were going to land it in like a week. What do you do? Like, who told you to jump and be foolish? Like, I didn't tell you to quit your job with no coffee experience. Like, you could have learned, like, you could have practiced. So no, you never fix an old lie with a new lie. So the same way, like, if somebody says you can be anything you want, no, you can't. There were 7 people my height in the history of the NBA. Yeah. 7 in the total history of the NBA. So And they all had names like Muggsy and Spud. So like, don't tell me, John, with the right attitude, you could have been in the NBA. No, that's garbage. That's why most young adults, when they experience self-help, motivational stuff, can instantly go, this is fake. This isn't real. This isn't helpful. So no, in a situation like that, if somebody was saying, okay, well, you're not smart, I'd look for evidence that I was. I'd look for the things that are proof that I am. They're not saying you're not the smartest person in the world, because you're not. Like, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I would find evidence of where I was, and then I would find effort to get smarter. So like, that isn't a proclamation as if you can't get smarter. Like, that could just be a broken soundtrack. So I'd go, okay, I don't accept that. And I also don't accept that I can't change that. So I'm going to work on getting smarter. I asked Tom Ziegler that. You guys are in Texas. Zig Ziglar is a Texas legend.
Man. Legend.
Yeah. And so I had lunch with Zig a few years before he passed away. And I talked to Tom Ziegler. And I asked him that question. I was like, is it about fake it till you make it? And he's like, no, we never teach that. We teach tell the truth in advance. So he said, I wouldn't say I'm in the best shape of my life. That's a fake statement. If you're not in the best shape of your life, that's why like toxic positivity is you're perfect just the way you are. No, you're not. Like, you're not. Like, you have things that could be better. We all do. He said, what we'll say is things like, I'm getting fitter and fitter in every way and every day. Like, I'm doing the work and I can see progress. I'm moving towards something versus I'm amazing today. I'm the best ever. That's the difference.
Bro, I had lunch with Zig Ziglar before he passed away.
Wow.
And so I remember that.
Amazing, right?
That was one of the things I loved. And being in that office, and I remember on the wall, it said, you can have anything you want in life. Just help everyone get what they want, or something like that. And I was just
yeah, exactly.
He is a legend.
Man, that's so good. I think it's important that you don't replace it with like a fake truth, because that's going to let you down at some point, and then you're going to be left like floundering and wondering like what's going on. It's just going to make it worse for you. So that's good. Okay, I want you to talk more about turn down the dial, how it's a dial and not a switch, because I think that that's really interesting, and I want to hear a little bit more about what you mean by that.
Yeah, so that was game changing for me. And that happened. I had a coffee with a guy named David Thomas in Nashville, and he runs Daystar, this amazing center for young adults and children. That's a counseling center, which is awesome, because like we take that for granted now, but like in the 80s growing up, we didn't have that. Like adults didn't go to counseling, never mind having specialized young adult counseling. And so I was asking him about this, and he said, John, the challenge is people think negativity, negative thoughts, stress, whatever, is like a switch. They want to find one thing that switches it off forever. So they go, I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to move to Waco. As soon as I move to Waco, my problems will go away. As soon as I go to Baylor, whatever, like they think it's a switch. And then what they find is the stress comes back, because life is stressful. Like up to 80% of Americans that move from mainland US to Hawaii move back in the first year. Up to 80%. Wow. Why? Because they thought, oh, as soon as I have greater access to macadamia nuts, like as soon as I'm around more pineapple, all my problems will go away. They go to Kona, they unpack their boxes, and all their insecurities they had in Ohio have followed them there to Hawaii. And it's really, California's the same way, Florida's the same way. So what he said is, it's not a switch, it's a dial. When life gets loud, because it's going to, and your dial is at a 9 or a 10, you have turn down techniques to turn that stress down. So you deliberately know, okay, when I'm at a 9 or a 10, here's 10 things that I know help me turn the dial down. I need to do 3 of them. And they're always personal. They're always related to who you are. And they're, you try to make them physical, like you get your body moving. You try to make them not expensive, because if they're expensive, you might not do them. Like if you said, John, one of my favorite turn down techniques is to visit Italy. Like you can't do that on a Tuesday if your boss yelled at you. Like, but if you say one of them is, there's a park in Waco I love to walk around, you'll forget that. That's the other thing. Like, add the spiritual element. What does the enemy come to do? Steal, kill, and destroy. What does he steal? The good things. So of course it's hard to remember the good things that turn down your stress when you're stressed. You'll like the lie about loneliness. Loneliness goes, hey, I feel alone. I should spend some time alone figuring this out. What? And then you just then you're just more alone and more isolated. And so you just deliberately go, what are the turn down techniques? I like to write them down, because you're going to forget them when you're stressed. Like, make it as easy as possible as you can. one of mine that I joke about a lot, the dorkiest one, is I love putting together big Lego cars. Like I love putting together a big 911 or a Bugatti. And our rule in our house is it has to be cars, not vehicles, because my wife is like, a vehicle's a slippery slope to Star Wars, and I can't. Like that is a dork line. I can't have you cross.
Yeah. You're close.
And so I'm close, dude. But so for me, none of my life has instructions. Like be a parent, be a husband, like be a speaker, writer. There's no clear instructions. But when I get an instruction manual for a Lego car that has 4,000 pieces and follow it step by step, that's like knitting for me. For some people, it's like gardening. So that's the difference between a switch and a dial.
That is fascinating. That's well said.
So I think the biggest problem that I've seen with young adults is they don't have the effort to change their mindset. It's like, this is who I am, and I just kind of want to sit here because like what you said with the loneliness thing, I'm lonely, and I don't really want to put in any effort to really change that. What would you say to someone who just doesn't have the effort to change?
The soundtrack I always joke with, I'll say, you tried nothing and none of it worked.
Yes.
Like when somebody tells me their problem, it's like, well, you tried nothing and none of it worked. So of course, but the big thing there is you've got to help them see a goal they want more than staying the same. Like people change via two ways, a crisis or a goal they want more. Yeah. So like you can wait until your marriage falls apart, your life falls apart, whatever. Like you can learn via crisis. It's just a really painful way to learn. It's really hard. It's it's just so painful. Or you can say, I want this thing more than what I currently have. And it can be community. Like I want community. I'm willing to do that. People never change just because. Like no one does hard things just because. They either do them because, wow, this thing blew up and I can't live this way anymore. Or they go, wow, I have a mentor who has the kind of life I want to have in 10 years. And like, I'm willing to do that. Like, I would rather, it's easier for me to binge watch Netflix than it is to write books. Yeah. But I want to hold a finished book in my hand. I've had that experience. I love getting like a foreign edition of a book I wrote. I don't get that unless I do a lot of little hard things along the way. So it's not that I'm disciplined, cause I'm not, I'm obsessed with a goal. The way I say it is like, find something so dope, it makes everything else look dull. Something so good. And that's the same, again, that's biblical. Yeah. Cause it's not, I just have to find sin unattractive enough. Right. And then no, you have to look at the cross and see the beauty and be obsessed with the beauty. And that we have a father that fixes problems with parties. The idea of the prodigal son, that he fixes problems, that's nothing, that never happens in the rest of your life. Yeah. You'll never have a boss go, you lost the account, we're so mad at you, here's a party. That's not how the rest of life works. And we have a God that does that. So that's what's his love drives that change, not I'm so disgusted by sin, I'm going to change. It never works that way.
Oh, so good.
Censor it, but tell the Kanye story.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep the restricted.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why I edited it in the book. So there was a story that Dave Chappelle told to Jimmy Fallon, and it's one of those, you know how you have a pocket full of YouTube clips you watch again and again and again, they're on your short list. And so the story was, he said, I knew when Kanye was going to be a star, and he said Kanye hadn't really blown up yet. He just recorded his album, and we were watching clips of the Chappelle show that no one's ever seen before. The most famous, they would become the most famous clips. And Kanye gets a call, and all he says on the call, he can't hear the other person on the call. He says to him, no, I can't do that. I can't do that because I'm at the Dave Chappelle show watching clips no one's ever seen. And then he pauses and he says, because my life is dope and I do dope stuff. And then he hung up. And Dave Chappelle said, we knew. And so that became a soundtrack in our family of, because my life is dope and I do dope stuff, because there's this real sense. And again, bringing it back to God, if you can't celebrate and enjoy the good things he gives, you don't get to know the good father. Yeah. And there's this thread of evangelicalism where it's it's really busted that it has to be miserable. You have to and and it gets into money. There's so much shame around success. And so it, for us as a family, was when that happens, well, my life is dope and I do dope stuff. That's awesome. Let's celebrate that. It became an anthem of celebration for us. And the other thing is that,
for everyone, that's, I don't want to I want you to be able to say what you're going to say, but here, my question is, everyone I've had read the book that's been a big takeaway of theirs. I'm like, why is that so powerful, that moment?
Yeah.
Because my life is dope and I do dope stuff. What?
Yeah, it's because it's true. Because it's true and it's celebratory. And we have a culture that says must be nice. Like the problem, JP, is we have a humble brag culture.
Yeah.
You can share the worst parts of life on social media and people will go, oh, poor you. Like we have a kind of morose culture. But then if you go, this exciting thing happened to me, people go, ooh, humble brag. Ooh, and then we don't share the good stuff.
Yeah.
Like we never share the, like, so I believe like, again, back to the prodigal son, my vision of the gospel is I love that the older brother didn't come to the party until the party was so loud and the dancing was so loud he couldn't ignore it. What if that was the gospel? Like people were like, they are dancing way too loud. Like, what is going on? Like, we've got to get closer. We've got to come out of the field and ask, like, this party seemed, and no one ever says that of Christians. No one ever goes, they're so hilarious. They're such good party throwers. Yeah. So, like, what if we could switch that?
This is going to be the best podcast ever because the sound guy is back there just nodding his head, writing stuff down. He's like, oh good, that's good.
I feel like it's easy for you to say this, though, because you're hanging out with Michael Hyatt and speaking at huge businesses, and it's like, all these cool people. And meanwhile, I'm selling mortgages. Like, my life is not dope, and I'm not doing dope stuff.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, but I would,
mortgages?
You're on a podcast though in the middle of the day. Like you're recording a podcast at 11:30 on a Tuesday. Like you're not a coal miner, so like you are doing cool stuff. Like,
and if you were a coal miner, like you're mining coal. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. No, so I look at that. That's a fair point. So. But I think here's the lesson there is you look for it. You find the things you look for. And so you have to be like, here's what I say. Fear comes free, hope takes work. Fear comes free. You'll never have to look for fear. Fear will find you. You'll be at the grocery store and something terrible you did 10 years ago will go, knock, knock, knock. Let's think about this again. That never happens with good. Like we don't even have an opposite word for the word trauma in the English language. Scientists have studied this. We don't have an antonym for trauma, meaning a word that's so big and so powerful that joy hits you 10 years later and it's a wash. Like you're awash in joy. And so you have to do the work. So whether you're 24 and you're at a job you don't like, and you're single and you wish you were married and you feel like you're frustrated, you do the work of going, okay, well, I'm going to find the things and I'm going to change it. I get to change it. Like this is like, I get to be, you're 100% of the people you're 100% control over. And so like, you get to go, okay, well, what am I going to do with that? It's not where I want to be. And then you flip that into desire. Okay, if I don't have what I want right now, what are the things I want? And then what are the steps? I always tell young adults, like, don't spend all your time with idiots and then be surprised you don't meet cool people to date. Like you're surrounding yourself with idiots. So of course you're going to marry an idiot. That's just math. Like that's just, there's not going to be an amazing dude that delivers your pizza. And you're like, hey, I know this is weird, but do you love the Lord and do you like hiking? Like that's not how it ever happens. And so you have to be deliberate and that takes an intentionality. But yeah, you don't have to wait to think my life is dope. I mean, I remember small parts of that when I was young, and going, okay, this is cool. This is neat. And then the other thing you have to remember, so like, the book came out today. So today I got to hold the book that came out today. That's only happened 8 times in 46 years. So you better fall in love with the process. Yeah. The process takes me years. The day of holding the book is like, like maybe that feeling lasts an hour. So you have to fall in love with other parts of it along the way where like, I always say like book signings, like if you want to be humble, do a book signing. Cause like, it's never like 1,000 people. Like it's always like you're in the corner of a bookstore and they announce it over the but that's not, I'm not doing it for 1,000 people. I'm doing it for the 10 that show up because those are the 10 that matter in that moment. And you've got to kind of learn how to reframe that.
Somebody's in the store and they don't know who you are, but they see the table and they're like, oh, I guess, sure.
No, but they look at it. They look at it and they go, I don't know, $9 for your life story while they drink a $12 coffee. And they're like, nah, and then they put it down.
So the book is your new playlist with John Acuff. Make sure you get this book. I told you Soundtracks, which was the predecessor was really impactful in my life. This one's written just for you, your new playlist with John Acuff. Kathy has an important question, and then I want to make history before we end. So
Whoa.
that's a little teaser.
Okay, I just thought you have this cool process: retire, replace, repeat. I thought that would be really
Man, I
helpful.
want to retire.
I mean, okay.
You're doing so good at keeping us on track.
No, I just
like,
this
look,
is
she's got
helpful.
her
I've
notes.
got my notes over
you're
here.
doing a great job.
Because we're talking to people in their 20s and their 30s who life isn't the way they want it to be. They've got broken soundtracks that are keeping them from who God has created them to be. So I think it'd be really helpful if you could walk us through quickly, I guess, the process there using a soundtrack that you've heard. So like, say someone has a soundtrack of I'm Not Blank Enough, like one that you know, maybe even one that you had personally. How would you retire it? How would you replace it? And then what would you repeat?
So for me, I would say, let's say it's too late. Because I meet people in their 20s that are like,
Yeah.
it's too late. I've missed
good.
my opportunity. It's too late. So retire. And here's, if you want to identify if you have one, because maybe somebody listening is like, how do I even know if I have a broken soundtrack?
Yeah.
I'll give you a 30-second activity. All you do is write down a goal, and it can be any goal. I want to move to a different city. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to get married. I want to date. I want to start a podcast. I want to write a book. I want a new job. I want a promotion, whatever. Write down a goal and then listen to your first thoughts that come next.
Yeah,
Listen
that's
to your
great.
reaction, because every reaction is an education. Are your first thoughts, you should do that? You're the perfect age to do that. Or are they the opposite? Are they, who are you to do that? No one will listen. What's interesting about fear is fear argues both sides of the coin. When you're in your mid-30s and you're in your mid-20s, early 20s, fear will say you're too young. You're too young. You don't have enough experience. You're too young. Then you hit like your late 30s, early 40s, and fear goes, you missed your shot. Like it's over. Like, and you want to say to fear, when was I the perfect age? As if fear will go, there was a Tuesday when you were 29 for 10 minutes would have just been perfect.
Yeah.
So the first thing you do is you retire it, you identify it. So write down a goal, write down and find, and if it's positive, amazing. More than likely it's not going to be because we have a negativity bias with our brains. So the first thing you do is you retire it. And the way you retire is you ask 3 questions. Is it true? Is the thing I'm telling myself about myself true? Is the thing I'm telling myself about this opportunity, about this city, about this relationship true? Because one of the greatest mistakes you can make is assuming all your thoughts are true. And we believe our thoughts because they're delivered in the voice we've heard the most in our life, our own. That's why we believe our thoughts. So if you said it's too late and you're 26, is that true? You, lifespan wise, you have 60 more years. You have 6 decades. Is it too late? That's not true. That's not mathematically, that's not true.
Yeah.
Second question, is it helpful? Is it helpful? Like when I tell myself this again and again, does it push me forward? Does it pull me back? The reason you ask that question is some things in life are true, but they're not helpful. For instance, I met somebody who said, I got fired from my job 10 years ago. And I noticed that now whenever there's a meeting and I'm not in it and the door closes, I start to wonder, I'm going to be fired again. Am I going to be fired again? What's going on? Is it true he could be fired? It is. It's true of all of us. Is it helpful for him to say that again and again and again? Of course not. Third question is it kind? Is it kind to me to talk to me this way? And the flip side of that is, if I talk to a friend this way, would they still want to be my friend? Yeah. If you can't say yes to is it true, is it helpful, is it kind, it's probably a broken soundtrack that you need to retire. But in order to do that, you have to replace it with something new. That's a biblical principle. What happens when the house is clean and empty? 7 shows up, like 7-fold shows up. So your brain wants to think. So you replace it with something true, and there's a million ways you can do that. And then you have to repeat it, because it's not just that you do it once. Your mindset is a lifestyle. It's something you practice. I had so many people tell me, over the years, John, this exercise plan isn't working. I'll go, how long have you done it? They'll say 10 days. And I'll say, how long did it take you to gain the weight? They'll say 10 years. You gave the problem 10 years to develop, but the solution 10 days. That's so unkind to yourself. So you have to repeat it. I mean, that's what we're told. But again, biblically, we're told to meditate day and night. We're told to pray without ceasing. There's a really clear repetition theme throughout the Bible. Yep. And so those are the 3 steps. You retire, you replace, you repeat.
That's so good.
I love it. And these are biblical ideas. I know that people typically listen to this, thinking that we're going to teach something from the scripture. I would just say Romans 12:1-2. Therefore, I urge you, in view of God's mercy, to present your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And Philippians 4:8, whatever is true, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is noble, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things, which is in that same vein of do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And so here's what I'd love to end is I'd love to come up with the antonym of trauma. And so we can get it. We're going to listen. We got a couple million listeners. You guys are going to help us do this, use it in commonplace language so that we get it in Webster's dictionary. When it's in there, that's how we will know that we won, because our life is dope and we do dope stuff. So what is the opposite of trauma?
Traumo.
No.
You know, in
that.
Spanish, it's just like the A and the O.
It's
That's terrible. That's Webster's is always like,
that's not going to help us, man.
yeah.
I was counting on you because you're really smart.
Oh, wow. Thank
See?
you so much. Appreciate
Sorry,
that. Now that you said that.
Trauma.
I think we're supposed to say grace, right? Like, what's your favorite book? The Bible. Who would you like to have dinner with? Jesus. So I would say, like, start with grace and then think from there.
Okay, grace.
Super awesome. How about that? Just hyphenate it.
I don't got
What is it? Come on. What's the opposite of trauma?
Opposite of trauma?
So if you're healed from trauma,
Freedom?
and you've been washed
Is freedom?
in joy.
Freedom.
But I feel like it has to be a word that doesn't
Whole?
exist. We're making up a word here. We're trying to get a new word.
Oh, you mean like trillion or something? We have to come up with some sort of like.
Trillion exists. I don't know what they teach you at Sanford, but
No, I said trillion with a Y, not an ION.
That just changed the
Like-
spelling.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because think about every company. Every company's like
Is it-
synergy, but we spell it with a 7.
Yeah.
Trauma.
Okay.
Right.
Trilly.
Trilly.
Guys, I
That
just
sounds
had a
like
trilly.
word, too.
Yeah, no, Trilly. So it was trauma, but now I'm Trilly.
Yeah. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's that.
Some are going to say it's silly.
Oh
But
my gosh.
I think it's
Oh, jeez.
actually Trilly.
Amazing.
That's
I
going to
love
happen, guys. Would you do all you can to work into some sentences? Trilly. John
Dude.
Acuff is actually going to include that word in his next book, but the last book is out everywhere. Books are sold. Your new playlist. You're going to pick this up. It's going to be a blessing to you. Read it with your small group, your home group, cell group, community group, life group, whatever you call them. When you gather with people, read your new playlist. The Superpower of Mindset, John Acuff. Brother, it was fun, man.
Yeah.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, thanks for doing it, guys. I appreciate it. I'll
Yeah.
see you next time I'm in Waco. If I need any thing from Magnolia.
You're
Yeah.
never
I'll swing
coming
by.
to Waco. You live in Franklin,
Yeah.
Have you
man.
ever been to Waco?
Yeah, I drove through and I got some sort of German pastry at some
Oh,
German
Check stop.
pastry.
Check stop.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
you stopped at the check
Yeah.
stop. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's exactly where I was.
That's
That's
not-
what I didn't go to Magnolia, but I
Yeah.
did go get a German pastry.
That's not in Waco,
Yeah,
but
come
it
back.
is.
It's close.
It's close.
It's Waco-ish in Texas terms. That's
Yeah,
Waco.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Right.
You're 30 miles
Yeah.
away, but it's fine.
That's
I love
fun.
it.
That's funny.
Hey,
Awesome. Thanks,
you
guys.
We'll see you
Thanks,
next week.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Becoming Something, where we promise to keep the conversation honest and real for young adults in their 20s and 30s. Every moment we live is training for a future moment, and that's why we do this podcast, because we want you to be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you. Our hope with this podcast is that it would help you become all that God desires you to be. To find out more, visit becomingsomething.com.